right across upstairs on the ground floor for 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Free, open to everybody. Check out the link, 2026 Typographics. You'll see everything there. First and foremost, I wanted to give a huge thank you to TypeCulture, an incredible resource, a digital type foundry, but also an incredible type educational resource. TypeCulture has been sponsoring the recording of all of the lectures for the last several years. And we have this incredible collection of things that we've had presented from this stage and from Zoom. The program Type Cooper is 15 years as of this fall, so we've been around for a while. We have lots of content. We've been doing 12 lectures for the last 15 years, so you do the math. I can't do that math. But if you missed things, if you wanted to see, thanks to TypeCulture, we have this wonderful collection of lectures. So we have a lecture, the second lecture in the series will be Greg Gatzowitz. Greg is here somewhere. There he is. Hi, Greg. So please come next Monday. That's the second week of Typographics. So Greg will start the second week of Typographics here, same place, same time, June 29th. That shouldn't be an M. 2026, no M. 6:30, Greg's going to talk about some of the work he's been doing recently. The next lecture in the series will be on July 6th. Tal Lemming, incredible type designer, he's going to be here talking about the idea of method acting in typeface design. He's been working on a really large project for National Geographic, so a lot of super interesting work around everything that National Geographic does is the next lecture. And the lecture that will close out summer, Richard Arda is going to be here from the UK talking about the National Type Founding Collection that he's been helping with. And there's a book that Richard worked on, so it's this really interesting way to sort of finish the lecture series with a look at kind of collections and archives. So you can register for all of this at coopertype.org. I know it's confusing. Coopertype, I always confuse myself with that. Coopertype.org/lectures is the home for both the recordings and the upcoming lectures that we have. Without further ado, I'm going to turn the stage over to our wonderful colleagues from ECAL who will present the Typographic Atlas project, and I am going to leave the stage to Angelo Benedetto, who is the head of Bachelor's of Graphic Design program at ECAL, the University of Arts and Design in Lausanne. He develops courses in information design, dynamic identity systems, and visual communications, and he'll tell you all about ECAL and then introduce the other speakers. So with that, I'll introduce you to Angelo.
Good evening, and thank you all for being here despite the rain and the soccer match. I'd like to thank, before I start, Cara Di Eduardo and Sasha Tochilowski for helping bring this exhibition to the Cooper Union. Thank you very much. And on behalf of everyone at ECAL who contributed to this project, thank you for your generosity and your support. As you can hear, my English is not that good. My accent is strange, but I will start. But before getting started, let me briefly introduce also the speakers who will follow me today. They're going to be Rebecca Hausmann, type and graphic designer, graduate in 2025 and now teaching assistant in the Master in Type Design at ECAL. We will have also Sean Kuhnke, type and graphic designer, graduated in 2020, work and live in New York, and also Nayo Kim, type and graphic designer, also graduated the same year, 2020, work and live in New York. I will start with the context, presenting what is ECAL, because the acronym stands in French for École Cantonale d'Art de Lausanne, which is an art school of Lausanne. Lausanne is a city in the French part of Switzerland, 60 kilometers far from Geneva. This is our building, and this is a video presenting the school. As you've seen, we like to work, but we also like party. So this is ECAL with a lot of people in front of the school in the spring. Some annoying slides are coming with the curriculum. It's just to make you understand what's the program. We have 1 year preparatory year with mixed specialties. I'm going fast, sorry for that, but you found all the information on our website if you need to see closer. We have bachelor's program, visual arts, cinema, it's film studies, graphic design, media interaction design, photography, and industrial design. We have also masters that are on 2 years, visual arts, cinema, film studies, photography, type design, and product design. And we have master of the advanced studies in 1 year, design for luxury and craftsmanship. It's true that in Switzerland we have watch companies, so it's nice. Design research of digital innovation as well. And we have a certificate at advanced studies in creative leadership. It's Friday afternoons for 5 modules, each lasting 5 weeks. And we keep in that curriculum only 2. It's a bachelor graphic design and the master type design that we are presenting this evening. Especially the master type design here, because of this exhibition, of course. During their studies, students can experiment with different ways of drawing and designing typographic characters, and this range from proofreading in the traditional Swiss style, like here, and to experimenting with letter forms. For instance, this workshop with Radim Peshko about shapes and letter forms. Another one with paper collage, to re-imprinting traditional methods like calligraphy with a workshop with Vincent de Boer, or with Kai Bernau, a class named Tools Make Shapes, and where students are asked to create their own calligraphic tools. It goes to lettering, like a workshop with Job Wouters, and sometimes we like lettering with neon fluorescent ink. We also do stone carving workshop with Andreas Lindeger, and sometimes we change from stone carving to robot carving, and this is a workshop with iTechnical. It's with Thibaut Brevet, and it's programming a robotic arm. But we also go into some more technical aspect, like this variable font. It's a duplexing for the ones who doesn't know, it's a font that keeps the same width despite the change of the weight. We have some courses in type, we call type histories, but also the HI is into brackets, so type stories. Students are taking historical font and has to revive it. It involves the analyze and the redrawing of models, which with critical thinking about them. For instance, this is an example of a reinterpretation of forms. It's a collaboration with the Swiss Film Archive. It's turning lettering from historic film posters into typefaces. The students also has the possibility to visit some type foundries here at Offler. They like to go and dig deep, and they like the taste of precision, like the Baskerville punch here. You can see how small it is. And it's always reviewing, comparing, analyzing, and proofing. But it's not only type, it's also what are the circumstances of what we are designing in. And it's a specificity with graphic design, of course, you know. And we try at ECAL to link type design with graphic design, and to think that letter forms happen in a context. And so the question is, what's the use of the font? And here are some examples, like visual identities of museum. It's a course with Marie Louza. It includes communication for social networks with also type in motion. We also have simply text and image relation. We are really into editorial design. Here in an example with Nicolas Bernclau, it's a semester project in collaboration with a fashion designer, some other editorial projects. And it's also going out of the traditional type specimen. For instance, is a project by André Texera with a font that incorporates Roman and Gothic style, and it's inspired by the aesthetic of b-boying. And goes also beyond the print and the digital dichotomy with including tattoos. Now, as we talk about type design, and with this exhibition and this book, it's also to celebrate the 10th anniversary, we can say, of the master type design that has been started in 2016. And over its first 10 years, the master program has welcomed around 100 students from 27 countries, and each brought their own cultural background, professional experience, language and typographic perspective, and contributing to the remarkable diversity of methods, aesthetic and approaches to design. And together they explored new ways of drawing Latin letter forms, while also experimenting with a wide range of writing systems, including Arabic, Hangul, Hebrew, Cyrillic, Greek, Japanese, Chinese, Syriac, Mongolian, and Armenian. And through classes, workshops, and diploma projects, they produced more than 700 typefaces. For this project, Mathieu Corta, Roller, and myself curated a selection of these works, highlighting their diversity and quality. Some are diploma projects, and some are one-week workshop projects. And the result is this typographic atlas, a snapshot of the world of type design at ECAL over the past 10 years. This project is conceived as a typographic atlas and structured collection of typefaces organized in the same way as a geographical atlas. Rather than mapping territories, it maps the diversity of ECAL's typographic production, and it brings together typefaces, styles, and weight into a coherent system that can be explored both visually and systematically. The content is organized using city names and zip codes. Maybe you've noticed that in the exhibition. City names provide an alphabetical classification based on letters, and while zip codes introduce a numerical classification. And this dual system transformed the atlas into both a functional reference tool and a visual exploration of typography. In historical type specimens, city names were often used to showcase typefaces in a familiar and practical context. Their varied letter forms made them ideal for demonstrating readability, spacing, and overall character of a font. This is an example of 1920. And you can see that there are some cities, Birmingham and other like Dublin, for instance. And so we decided that we could maybe get inspiration of that, because we didn't want to search too long what to write in this atlas. And we quite soon decided to do a book that is an exhibition, and an exhibition that is a book. We started thinking about that, and also because this exhibition will present more than 508 typefaces and wade through a series of modules created by a product designer and named Adrien Rovero, and it's inspired by the paper making process, and more specifically by the drying phase. In this illustration, for instance, from the Encyclopédie Diderot d'Alembert, au Dictionnaire raisonné, we can see how sheets of paper were arranged during the paper making process. And inside the drying loft, a well-ventilated space designed to ensure proper drying, the sheets were draped over ropes and hoisted into place by female workers. So we decided to take this as an inspiration as well, and we arranged on a 3x8 grid, and this horizontal composition now allow visitors to experience the collection spatially and compare typefaces across the installation. You can see on the left that this is the modules from the exhibition, and on the right, these are the pages of the book. This accompanying book extends this experience across 480 pages, and by transferring the composition from horizontal to vertical formats, it deconstructs this exhibition grid and reveals the details of each typeface more closely. We did this book, and I need to mention that, with two former students from the school that are now have their own studio. It's Gilliane Cachin and Clément Rousseau, and they decided to do a composition grids that you've seen on the modules in order to make the type spread over several pages. So you have a 2x1 grid, a 3x1 grid, a 2x2 grid, and a 3x2 grid. Makes that it's also nice in the exhibition to see different sizes of the typefaces and not only the one size on one sheet, and also makes in the book, let's say, a sequence that is more dynamic. We decided that on the recto, on the left, you can see the cities. As I mentioned before, we use this, let's say, idea of the cities, and it goes from A to Z. And on the verso, it's the zip codes of those cities. And we've decided every now and then to also put some logos. It's you have to see that as type in use to make also some differences in the sequence. And in the book, it mixes cities and zip codes. So if you take apart the book, you could reproduce the exhibition at home. We used like a software. Let's say it's here a small video. No, it's not running. Yeah, okay. Here you have a demonstration how Gilliane Cachin did the layout of the book and the exhibition. She puts a list of cities in this little software, and then it calculates automatically with the width of the page and the typeface width, which cities will actually fit the best. And then you copy-paste this in InDesign. And actually, you have this justified text. There is no hyphen. Yeah, that's the demonstration. And on the other side of the page, there is the zip codes. And for the zip codes, she asked to ChatGPT to get the zip codes of those cities, and with a specific, let's say, structure. Okay, could be speed up a bit. Okay, you understand it well. Then we have the zip codes, and she put on the other side the zip codes, and the zip codes are centered. If you see the demonstration, she will copy this. Our centers, and if you compare this to the city name that is on the other side of the page, we understand this. So I skip. So these are some pictures we did in our cinema studio in ECAL to show also that this exhibition can be set in different ways. It's totally modular. We produced 10 modules like this, but that can be smaller as well. We decided to put screens, and on the screens we have those logo I told you earlier that have been animated, and we did that in December right here at the Cooper Union. We came with a class of interaction design students, and one of the tasks was to animate those logos. So part of this work you see today have been produced here in New York. And for the communication, we also use a little tool Jamie Herman developed, where it's not working here, but he can just put the title, the cities where the exhibition is, and then we produce this sphere that you see on everywhere in the communication. That's it from my side because time is running, and now I will call Rebecca Hausmann and leave the stage for her.
Thank you so much. So some more photos. The exhibition consists of a couple of hundred typefaces of the last 10 years of type design at ECAL. And you have to imagine that behind each of these projects, there's a long process of conception, exploration, and refinement. And to better understand this, I'm going to give you some insight into two of these projects. So some projects, as you saw before, start with inventing a new tool to come up with new shapes. Sometimes they start with a technical need or a historic source. Maybe they are for a specific usage or a specific context. And sometimes it starts by translating a concept from another field into type design. And I find this really interesting because this act of translation in type design, because it allows me to occupy myself also with other interests that I have. So Rank, my typeface Rank, started from a piece of writing. It's about a vagabond that meets a woman in a desperate situation, and they spend the evening together, they go to a fair. You feel like they might be falling in love and everything will turn out okay. They go on a roller coaster, they're cheering loudly, and then bam, an accident happens and she loses her life. And it's this heartbreaking story that I grew up with, and it's so well written, it really stuck with me. And when studying type design, I was wondering at some point, how can I translate this story into a typeface? And so for this, we need to extract the kind of key tensions of the story. You have the rugged life of a vagabond on one side, you have this deep emotionality on the other side, so this tenderness and roughness that creates a strong tension, this thirst for freedom also, and then the tragedy. And I came across this historical source in the archive of Erich Spiekermann that encapsulates the spirit actually really well of the story. And it's interesting that it's this whole page, but it's just this one paragraph that really spoke to me. Here everything fell into place. You see it on the left upper corner. And here it's in big. What drew me to it is this inkiness in the drawing, the wide proportions, the quite low contrast. It's almost inverted sometimes. And what is important for the story is that you have these round shapes together with these really dominant serifs, and this creates for me this tension between softness and roughness. And so on a technical level, I traced these scans digitally, regularized the shapes step by step, because many of you know, but maybe for those who don't do type design so much, until the mid-20th century, typefaces were cast in metal type. So these letters naturally contained irregularities from the production, from the printing process, maybe the dampness of the paper, the ink, etc. But then on the other side, digital outlines are super sharp. So you see every single irregularity. And so first I stayed close to the source, tracing it, and then try to go away in the second step and go closer to my imagination of Rank, of this vagabond. And I let him grow and develop with me as I also get better at drawing. So if we go more into detail for these, maybe for some of you that don't do it that regularly, I can get a little bit more concrete. So type design is a lot about correcting and evening out the overall appearance so that you can read and the reading flow doesn't get disturbed. A single letter should never stand out because it has irregular weight, or the width is wrong, or because the spacing around the letter doesn't work. So you make the stroke widths consistent, the contrast axis as well. The serifs and endings should speak the same language, and the white space of the counter shapes should create a consistent rhythm. So with the first version of this typeface, I made this tiny specimen. I don't have it here, but it's kind of this size. It's this companion for a vagabond, and it tells the story in this running text and also through larger words, more giving a glimpse. And then in the end, the layout breaks apart as the story comes to an end. But then as I revisited and updated the drawing, Rank visibly grew a little more. He's not vagabonding around Germany anymore. He's took on a more or less serious job. He's traveling to the US and writing stories about his encounters for 2 or 3 newspapers at home. He also made some friends, and he's finding out more who he is. And the real full circle moment happened when the design studio Daly and Leon in London used it for a Kiefer exhibition at the Royal Academy of Art in London. Because I don't know if you know Anselm Kiefer, but he's a German artist that is quite famous. He's quite old and has had a long career. And he made this small, almost intimate exhibition there, and you could read his diary excerpts from when he was 18 years old, and he was also vagabonding through Europe. You could read how he was struggling to find his voice as an artist, and this is like a really nice extension of the story of Rank. So it's really beautiful to see, to create a voice and a character in form of a typeface, and then seeing it live its own life. For example, also in this publication from Daly and Leon for Lismore Castle Arts. So I like to create typefaces that, in this case, translate a character in a piece of writing into letter shapes, into curves and serifs and proportions. And when we talk about visual translation in design, we have to remember that it should never be something literal. You never want to translate how something looks like, but more how it behaves. James Goggin writes in the Meta-Clark complex that the goal is not to imitate or even compete with the original, because this can lead to really flat pastiche. But you can interpret the original subjectively, and you can extend its logic, and this way you create something new and surprising. So in my second project that I want to show you today, I didn't translate a piece of art, but more the methodology behind it. I was researching the architectural practice of Diébédo Francis Quéré. He's a Berlin-based architect from Burkina Faso. And I found that he has this really simple but intriguing approach. He creates public buildings in his home country using materials that he finds on site. So this means compressed earth, clay, wood, stones, recycled material. And this, of course, lowers production costs, but it also creates buildings that are sustainable and more climate responsive. You can see that there's always space between the roof and the building itself to create airflow and to have the insides more cool. And so the question was again, how can I translate this method of working with material found on site into type design? And for me, in type design, what I can find around me is handwriting, for example. And then inserting the personal perspective. What is special maybe is that my family keeps an archive of thousands of letters from my ancestors writing to each other through wars, through many different times. And the one that feels the closest is from my great-grandfather, who was a writer and wrote all day. And you can see in the writing that he did this all day. It's nothing school learned. It's not a specific style, but it's become something deeply personal over the years. And at the same time, it's quite hard to read, as you can see. So I decided to analyze it using the tools that I have, which is designing a typeface. So again, the thought process of the architect, Quéré, making buildings with material found on site, then extending this logic to my context and interpreting it subjectively, designing a typeface based on handwritings around me. And I cheated a little bit. I took a version where he tried to write more legibly, and I based the digitization on this version. And of course, there's a lot of challenges that come with this process. You have to decide, do I take this N or this N to be more legible or to have more character? And you also want to preserve this texture of the natural handwriting. So you need a lot of alternates. I would say 5 at least. you see the first, so you have the capitals and you have the first line of initial characters where there's no connection stroke going in. Then you have 2 lines of characters in the middle of a word and 2 at the bottom at the end of a word where the stroke just naturally ends without going to another letter. And this connected stroke is quite like the critical part of this project, of course. I had to define a system where these letters meet so that it feels the most natural. And so, yeah, look into the process behind. I basically defined 2 angles of letters when it normally goes up, like an N, for example, or this E just goes up, and then it has this certain angle, but then a D or an O maybe ends at the top, and you need the same letter in a variation where it has a different angle. But these angles always stay the same, and this way, yeah, it works. And it could even be more. It could even have more variations and more angles to be even more handwritten. And then you add a really easy code that classifies the different versions, and you define which version comes after which other. And this you find on Glyphs app, Learn, the website where they have these tutorials. And so this is the resulting typeface. It's hyper-specific in the style, so it might be quite difficult to use. But for me, using it is not always the point. It's also about building methods. And for me, this is the whole meaning behind everything that I do, is building my personal pile of knowledge, of experience and style and things I've seen, ways of drawing. And the goal is to rely on this, on your own pile kind of while designing. So you can tune out all the outside noise and you can create works that come from your specific perspective. And so this resulting typeface you can also see in the exhibition with the large A. And I think the Atlas exhibition shows quite beautifully this exploration of methods and this drive to improve your skill, and it also shows how we learn from each other and that we share our resources and skills across the many cultures that are in one class. And I think also the Atlas shows that we can all explore very different styles and we can let them coexist so that it's up to you, it's up to the viewer to resolve this tension and to decide for yourself what works or what you don't like maybe. And yeah, now you know that behind each of these projects there's a universe of sketches and references and ideas. And you might not be able to understand them, of course, through this view, but maybe you can sense them. Thank you. The next speaker is Sean Kunk.
Just in case. Okay. Bonsoir, j'espère que vous allez bien. Je suis ravi de vous présenter mon travail ce soir. Chat. I'm just kidding. I will not make you listen to my broken French, but I had to give you a taste, as it's a critical part of my personal typographic journey. I've been very fortunate to study in many places. Learning and attempting to learn French was a critical component to my research and experience. To my Francophone friends, I promise to improve my accent before my next return flight. In the spirit of the book and exhibition, ECAL, a typographic atlas, I'm going to highlight the cities that played an important part in my design education, spanning from before I realized I would work as a designer, while a student, and later on as a professional. I will show a lot of work, and I will show it quickly. Think of it as a nonstop voyage with several tight connections. I grew up in the DMV, this region in between DC, Maryland, and Virginia. Really, Virginia is what I can claim most. The radio station I listened to was WPGC 95.5, blazing at least 18 jams in a row. This was the National Zoo, identity designed by Lance Wyman and Bill Cannon in 1975. This is my earliest memory of graphic design. I can't quite place it exactly, but I remember being drawn to the reduced forms that worked for a wide variety of animals that all fit within the same system, combined with the brutalist-inspired spatial design. Going to Washington, D.C. from Northern Virginia is almost like a mini retrospective for Lance Wyman, as he designed the metro system map. I believe the word mark, the credit goes to Massimo, but the map was his. Monumental scale concrete tunnels were also a major feature that one would encounter while traveling in DC, and the backlit signs rendered the geography of the DMV in a striking and accessible way. In high school, I would plan as many art museum excursions and music concerts in DC as my part-time mall job would allow. Looking like a sleepy but recent release, I'm here in the backpack. One more stands up with my brother, who on the left looks like he's about to market those shoes, wearing matching outfits sewed by my mom. I'm going to read a short quote from a talk by someone you all know. Garrett Nordzig spoke in a talk for Typo Berlin in 2014. How far can one remove oneself from a knowledge of meaning without becoming completely unintelligible? I've definitely tried. It's not possible to know how far removed one is without knowing knowledge of what it is from which one removes oneself. When one knows where one comes from, one knows where one is. If we ask, where are we, as well as where do we want to go, we should also ask, where do we come from? The next stop on my typographic journey was Richmond, Virginia. Here, interest in photography developed into screen printing. Many dorm rooms were co-opted into dark rooms for makeshift screen printing operations. A few bathrooms were sacrificed. The operation started simply, but grew in efficacy. Substrates of t-shirts turned into prints on paper. At this point, I realized the power of typography. If I designed a nice exhibition poster, people would come, even if the exhibition was in our friend's apartment. Design had a certain kind of authority when used within certain established codes. This helped bolster the effort of my close-knit of creative friends. Years spent on Nike Talk, a sneaker message board, would later come in handy, but just to say I was deeply engaged in certain strains of streetwear and pop culture, as well as an academic study of design, part hypebeast, part hyphen press. The next stop on my typographic journey. My first DJ gig was a work-study job as a print monitor in New Haven, Connecticut. I spun smoothness for 3 hours to a disinterested audience of undergrads and prepped my screens for the next project. This is the first place I formally studied type design. Tobias appreciated my interest in sign-painted letterforms and directed me to a curvier source than my first proposed revival project. Here, I first encountered the classic challenge of finding a beautiful shape and working to systematize it without losing all of its spark. Owen Gothic, type revival in use, 8-color screen print on blue parchstone paper. A pomelo reminiscing on top of an iconic column wearing prescription sunglasses. New York. My first professional experiences were working at a storied American furniture manufacturer, as well as a contemporary downtown art museum. In both these places, I learned to navigate a corporate environment, how to work as a collaborator with a wide variety of professions, and had the opportunity to work with inspiring artists and curators. The experience here was not so much in drawing type, but becoming sensitive to it within a fast-paced print production context. These are a few images of my space. This is right at the end of the lease. It's quite full, and you can see the byproduct of the work from those years. I left New York because I had the opportunity to go make a book about New York. It's slightly ironic that to do this, I had to traverse the Atlantic Ocean. These are test sheets determining if my color separations would be blue, yellow, and red, or blue, yellow, and fluorescent pink. Against my natural inclination, I opted for the more restrained red. I was interested in how subtle shifts in proportion could give something a different character, how an added component could have more identity than the larger whole. The monospace is by Jang Mueller, who kindly made me a custom capital A at my request. This is where I printed the spines of the book in my studio during the time I was there. And then this map in the corner of the room, this was my ticket to Lausanne and ECAL. I had come across an old carte scolaire, a French school map, while at an exhibition in Paris. I became enamored with the baton lettering style and knew I wanted to devote more time to study type design. I had applied to ECAL to continue this work. Full transparency, this is not an ad. I did not retouch this photo. It could use some contrast, but I wanted to give it to you honest. Lausanne is an unreal, kind of beautiful, and it was a pleasure, albeit a challenge, to study there. We had lectures with incredibly knowledgeable people, with the source material often in hand and accessible. And then not to say just purely type design, but editorial and graphic design assignments with idols who happen to be your professors, rather. These carte scolaires were produced in the 1880s and through the 1970s, produced in Paris by multiple publishers. Many were produced in the same building, Michard Printing. It's referred to as the baton letter form, which took place from a wide range of sources: sign painting, metal type, engraving, and later developments in lithographic processes. The earliest related manuals I have found are from the French Army, published in 1924. This is my memoir, my diploma project. I search, but I don't find you. Haribo, fuel. I visited the printer in Paris, who did not respond to my emails. However, when I knocked on the door, they quickly let me in and gave me a tour. They confirmed that the very first maps were printed on these same presses on large litho stones. From the colophon in the maps, we know that they shifted to a lighter and more easily stored zinc plates. This was a fundamental shift in the process, where at this point the letters were drawn on ink transparent calc, or transparency, then exposed on photographically treated zinc plates. In a bit of a curveball, I attempted to link the production of these maps to psychogeographic maps of the Situationists International, some of which were printed in the same city and around the same time. I became interested in the subjective idea of mapping and inspired by the ideas of Jacqueline de Jong, Asker Jorn, and Guy Debord, thinking one way to learn a city is to get lost in it, to search for a pulse rather than a pin. The first word for the memoir is in French. This was our deliverable for the diploma project. But then for the second volume, I opted for the English word to take a more personal angle, to show the implementation and a journal of sorts from my own subjective mapping of Lausanne, which dealt with the skate community I became a part of when I was living there. I drew different weights from different sources on the maps. I was too enticed to regulate them all into something more simple and pitched them as a dysfunctional family. They were drawn separately and followed different logic. They did not interpolate. This is implementation of the project. I was happy to print something at Oldry before they stopped screen printing, a legendary printer in Switzerland. And then was also lucky to have it included in an exhibition at Welt Format in Lucerne. This is my atelier, aka my apartment in Lausanne. On these walls, ideas would kind of come to life a bit later on, but I would continue to mine them for work in the future. The fill form, the hairline weight of what I worked on became a poster for a project in Richmond, Virginia. The sketch for a workshop with Vadim Pesco became record covers for my roommate. Likewise, other sketches I had initiated at ECAL turned into projects years later. Having drawn these numerals, they were unused in a workshop. However, years later, they became seen by a manager at Warp Records who came across them and was interested in the sensibility. These numbers were turned into titles for the multi-genre artist Square Pusher. It was released last winter. At ECAL, there was a professor, Elise Savoie. She was one of my professors and recommended that I would continue my studies in Nancy at l'Atelier National de Recherche Typographique. This was another amazing opportunity to dive deeper into my research and to continue learning drawing skills from skilled type designers, developing experience in teaching, and even complete commissions for the school. When I began, I wanted to take a break from carte antique, what I was drawing at ECAL, and I focused first on a revival of Venus, which is another typeface that's commonly found within the world of cartography. When I returned to carte antique, I started over, this time having now accumulated a lot of books and different maps. I developed a more condensed version with smoother curves based on some of the later maps I'd acquired. This is in use. This is printed at Lizard Graphique in Strasbourg, another excellent printer. I was looking for excuses to print posters everywhere I went. I will continue to do so. Wayne Daly has used the numerals in an exhibition at the Barbican. And then I also had a chance to use it for an exhibition in New York. The Sketches of Venus turned into an event identity for a collaborative lecture series between the Rijksacademie and Jan van Eyck Academy. I completed the return trip 5 years later back to New York. I feel somewhat at home after being on the road for so long. I did not intend to leave, but there were a variety of forces pulling me back to the East Coast, and I was very happy to touch down. I had the opportunity to work on amazing exhibitions at the Museum of Modern Art. I enjoyed getting a glimpse at high-end exhibition production from the exhibition design and spatial teams, as well as the production specialist on our team, Claire, who is immensely knowledgeable about printers and processes. I can't really claim Los Angeles, I would claim New York, but I spent a bit of time there and had a little bit of a pivot back to the SB Dunks in Josef Müller-Brockmann book photo. Just to say, I had a run while I was doing work more on the side of art direction and production for music and streetwear-related content. This having been part of the reason I got into design, album covers from skateboard videos, all of this was intrinsically connected to how I thought about graphic design. I was hyped to have a chance to take the same attention to detail to how a curve was drawn, to images that are sequenced and photos selected. Also, these moments brought out old cameras. I was often enlisted as someone who could hang in a room full of artists and manage to get a few BTS photos without disturbing the vibe. I'll conclude with like a recent project back in New York. Right now I work as a lead designer at a creative agency called Something Special Studios. We were approached by Performa, an iconic performing arts organization led by Rosalie Goldberg, to create a visual identity for a fundraising event. Their concept was to have a variety show off-Broadway, referencing vaudeville shows. It would be a mix of diverse acts, only one night, presented live. It was to be held at a historic theater off-Broadway called the Town Hall. My challenge as a designer was to take these historical references and somehow make them feel contemporary. I used rough grotesque as body copy and created display lettering inspired by early slab serif wood type, common in early playbills. I worked to make it contemporary by changing the proportions and giving it a slightly digital feel with rounded corners. This is the kind of work I'm interested in pursuing, work that has a connection to history and a sensitivity to a contemporary moment. I have found in my work so many times an early sketch comes back later as the perfect idea, a reminder to never forget about what is lying in the drawer and always retaining a student-like curiosity and willingness to put yourself in a new environment. You never know what shapes you might find. Thanks.
Hello. Hi, my name is Nayo. I'm a graphic and type designer based in New York. I'm very happy to be here, to be able to share my work in front of so many people. So we graduated at ECAL back in 2020, and interestingly enough, I also attended TypeCulture condensed program right before that. So this is almost like two of my type design universe coming together in one place. So this is a very exciting opportunity. So just diving into the first project that I did in ECAL. This is like stencil typeface design during the workshop, 1 week workshop with Studio Gnome. So we have the objective of this project was to create a stencil typeface. But as a person who's always been fascinated by modular typefaces, I wanted to combine those two things together. So I created this template after numerous testing and creating different shapes and having these dots around the shape to kind of create the system for the kerning. So you can kind of see how different shapes can be overlap each other to create a consistent kerning system. And as I was working through it, I felt like there was Winnie the Pooh little hands coming up. So I wanted to name this typeface as Winnie and add 2 additional clips. You can see the honey pots, comma, and also the Winnie the Pooh face, period. So this is what I actually work on, the actual templates. You cannot really see the dots, but there is punched hole dots where there could be a compass, almost an anchor for 2 different templates overlapping together. So this is a type poster I made with these stencils. It came out a lot more legible than I expected it, so I was really happy with it. So this is one of the really fun projects I worked on for the first time. And it really taught me how to look at the letter form in a way that what's the core DNA of this letter form? What is the initial structure that you cannot you cannot remove from it? So boiling down to the bare minimum of these shapes, and we can kind of figure out how we work with the stencil and modular system. And this interest led me to a second project. It's called Cubitive. It's inspired by Cubism, directly inspired by Cubism at the conceptual part approach to it. If you're thinking about Cubism versus realism, realism is about drawing what you see as exactly how you see it. But Cubism is about how you're drawing as you're thinking of it. You're drawing what you know instead of what you see. And wanted to bring those kind of ideas together and bring it into the type design sense of it. And if you're thinking about Picasso's painting, Picasso's portraits especially, you'll see all these eyes, nose, lips, and ears. They are all in different shape, different color, different sizes, but all together you see a collection as a face. And wanting to approach the type design in the same way, where it's a collection of shapes instead of one monotone stroke that you're usually thinking of it as a writing system. So I made 2 different styles. The first style, I call it synthetic style because it's directly inspired by synthetic cubism, where it's widely recognizable through its simpler shape. And wanted to create this letter form where it kind of fits into each other like a puzzle. So almost this whole type become an image itself. So it's something that's more than just being legible, being text, something more than that. The second style that I experimented was analytical typeface. So this is inspired by analytical cubism, which is basically putting multiple perspectives into a one dimension. So wanted to have the kind of fragmented sort of appearance into the look of this type. And obviously this is a really one few weeks workshop kind of thing, so it's like not really fully boiled down, fully really baked in. But this really sort of become a big inspiration, big reference for my diploma project that I'm going to share next. I was always interested in this abstraction and conceptual part of type design and typography in a broader sense. And when I saw this drawing in MAMCO in Museum in Geneva, there was almost like a light bulb moment. This drawing is done by Ilma Blank. She's a German artist who played with the concept of the words, concept of text, concept of typography. So if you look at it from the far, it almost looks like pages of text, but when you get closer to it, it's actually just a bunch of lines. So she's asking a question, what is words, what is language, what is text? So this became a really huge foundational inspiration for me as I go deeper into the research. So this is another thing that was a really big sort of moment during my research. So I watched this talk by Sophie Bayer, and she showcases this experiments that she did about trying to find the most recognizable part of the letter forms. So she blurs out different parts of the letter form, trying to figure what's the most legible part of each letters. And this became almost like connected back to my Winnie project and also the cubitive, where trying to find the initial core DNA of each letter forms. And this research led to another research. So this is an article by Douglas Hofstadter. So this is back in 80s, but surprisingly, it's very very relevant to these days because this is his response to the mechanical type design. So there was a lot of, this is like back in the 80s, computers are coming out, and type design, there's a completely different sort of a layer to it. So his response to that sort of an era was that how there's a lot more creative decision type designer has to make because there's a lot of characteristic that's shared by same characteristic shared by different letters. And this is one of his example drawing where H and K actually share a lot of similarity, and it's up to the type designer to make a call. So all of this coming together became a really big question that was leading to my diploma projects. When does what we see stop being what we know? So this is directly connected back to the Cubism project and also thinking about what is typography. If you're looking at things that looks like a letter, but it's not letter, is that typography? So my diploma project is called, I called it the form between duck and wolf. I believe it's a French expression. It's for the time between the night and the mornings. So that's when the sun is about to rise. So but if you're looking at it still, you are not sure if the sun is rising or sun is setting. So that is that ambiguous moments that they call it the time between duck and wolf. So this diploma project, it's really about looking at the type design in the relationship of conception and perception, what we see and what we know, and how is it relate to each other when you're reading type and also designing type. So basically, I created this gray letter, which is a letter that could be read as 3 different letters. So depending on the context, depending on how it's positioned next to, A could become an A or it become an H, or this lowercase could become an A or become a U. And as the project progresses, the abstraction is going more intense because one gray letter is starting to cover more letter than just one. So there will be two letters covered by one gray letter, 3 letters covered by one gray letter, and at the end, it's putting the reader to the situation where what you see is not what you know anymore. So I came up with all these different kind of combination of words, combination of letters, that depending on how you read it and how you're thinking about reading it, that will be read in different way. So this is really kind of one of the fun projects, almost like a word play, and wanted to put it in the context of paragraph as well. So as you're reading this story, it gets more abstract as you go. So at the end, you're hardly reading what you're hardly know what you're reading. So this is the entire collection of the gray letter that I had for this diploma project, and that was presented with this flag poster with all these words and sentences and letters that is letter, but it's actually not legible. So you're probably wondering if I ever made a functional typeface in school, because I have so much fun working on all these crazy letter forms. I actually did, just for once. So this is my reviver typeface and the original drawing of it. And as I was studying type design, especially in Europe, and I got to learn so much about great type designer from the history. And that's when I started to wonder, where are the female type designers? I just haven't heard about it, haven't learned about them. So I did my own research and found this designer, Elisabeth Freehänder from Germany. She was a type designer and illustrator during the wartime, so there's not a lot of record that's left after her about her legacy. But this is one of the very few references from her original drawing, Elisabeth. It's very, I wish I blew it a little bit more, but you can see the letter form being very quirky, and there's a lot of dynamic, sort of a curve, a lot of personality coming through in different shape, different letter forms. So I wanted to bring this and digitize the way that it's a little bit easier to read in the digital environment. So I made it, reduce the contrast a little bit and sort of make the serif a little bit more sturdier, so it's a little bit easier to read in this digital environments where everything is a lot more visible. So I made 4 weights and corresponding italic. So it was really great fun looking into these historical references and trying to figure what is the characteristic that I want to keep and what is the characteristic that I want to change. Those are the biggest sort of a challenge as I go through it. And you probably wonder what's the name of the typeface. It's TBD, because I'm still working on it even after 5 years. Because I wanted to challenge myself and expand it to another script. As Korean, I always wanted to design the Korean typeface, Hangul typeface. But because it's very different from what I learned from school, I always hesitated to start one. But for this summer, I wanted to start it and wanted to bring this quirkiness, different personality into this Hangul script. But it is a lot more challenging than I expected it, because obviously, this is a very different writing system coming from very different structure. So it is a lot more layered than I expected it, but it's TBD, work in progress, hopefully releasing sometime next year. So that was my ECAL projects, some of the typeface design that I did in school. And for the next few slides, I wanted to just have a little bit more of a quick overview of what I've done after I graduated. And instead of going through it project by project, I wanted to have it on the backdrop and kind of talk about my journey in a little bit more of a quick sense of overview. So as we graduated back in 2020 with Sean, it was midst of pandemics. So everything was uncertain, everything was chaotic. And personally, I was moving between city to city, country to country. And so job security was the biggest thing. It's an excuse, but it is what it is. So I wanted to go back to branding, to something more stable, as something that I'm more familiar of. So I went back to branding, and ever since then, I've been part of different branding agency, branding studios, and was part of big-scale, small-scale projects. But not that all those things that I learned from type design school was in vain. All those things, the design sensibility, also conceptual thinking, all comes through, especially if you're dealing with any types of typography during the projects. So, but as I was gathering this material for this presentation, it was really refreshing to go back to the laptop and digging out the hard drive and looking at all this work from the past. And that's when I realized how I was sort of lost that passion. I had lost the curiosity that I used to have back in school. And because when you're wrapped around in this corporate world, you're always going to be speak about numbers, right? Bigger salary, higher positions, bigger clients, all those things. So when you're wrapped around in that, you kind of forget how it was like when you're in school. That's when you're allowed to be creative, allowed to be flexible, allowed to be a little bit more adventurous. And those are the things that I was kind of sort of forgotten for a while. And because of this opportunity, I was able to look back at it and think about how I wanted to move forward from here. And as I was thinking about ECAL sort of a memories, I thought of this moment that really deeply left mark in my heart during my diploma presentation. As I was finishing up my presentation, the diploma project you just saw, one of the jury member came by and he left a comment on my project. And he was saying, there will be only one person out of 10 people is going to appreciate the things that you do, especially this types of project. But still, he believes that's enough reason for me to keep going. And that's something really stuck in my head for a while, and I kind of forgotten about it for the past few years. And now I'm thinking back, and it really gave me another reminder that not everybody has to like your work, not everybody has to approve your work. And it's something that you keep forgetting when you're, especially in these corporate worlds, in commercial worlds. But it's something that I hope that I can go back to, where the value of curiosity and also the value of persistence to stay curious is something that I also need to do as a personal sort of objective that I also want to pursue for the next chapter of my life when it comes to career. So, thank you. I think we are going to take a few more questions with everybody on the stage.
Yeah, we have a little bit of time for questions, you guys. So I have these for you guys. So Kara's on that side of the room, I'm on this side of the room. If you have a question, just wave your hand so people on a line can hear you, and also folks, so if you have questions, raise your hands, we'll come around. Any thoughts? We're gonna get the, oh, there we go, we got the lights. Questions?
When you did your revival typeface, was that your choice or were you forced into it?
Reviver itself, the concept of it, or it was a class, so you have to find the revival typeface. But I'm glad I had the class, because otherwise I think I'll be making all these crazy typefaces, and you'll be forgetting how to do the actual functional typefaces. So.
Right.
I have a question for Sean. Did you work with Earl Sweatshirt?
I met him. I mean, I work with his team, but yeah, we're dealing with his manager a lot. Sweatshirt team, yes.
What did you do with him?
I mean, we showed his team different treatments for like the photo shoot, and then we were there on set, and then like the final video and the final interview would sort of have to go through edits with like us and his team. I was there to just sort of like art direct on site and get photos, and he came in and he said, "I'm Tebe," and shook my hand. So I was on cloud 9 for the evening. It was cool.
There we go. If you guys wanted to. So it's not, no, it's not in your eyes, the projector. We'll bring it back up. Other questions? Well, you can ask questions in the reception. So if you guys want to be a little bit more casual about it. And the books will be available, right? So I think, all right, last one, we'll take one here.
Thank you so much for your guys' presentation, and I'm just wondering, like, what brought you guys back or to New York, and how is that experience like, and how did the education at ECAL kind of influence the work you do here in New York?
Why did I come back to New York? A few reasons, I think. Love, running out of student visas, a really good job opportunity, and Yeah, I don't know. I miss being out there, but also I miss it here, and happy to be back. But I try to go back frequently.
For me, because I was in ECAL during the pandemic, that's when we graduated. So I had to be sent back to Korea, all this visa stuff. So I worked there for a year, and that's what I really miss being in New York, because I think there's a really big difference when it comes to design scene, and especially in Asian Western worlds in some ways. And for me, as a person who never really been part of the Korean design scene, it was a little too extreme, and it was very different from what I used to. So I wanted to come back to New York, to somewhere that's a little bit more familiar, and somewhere that's a little bit better job opportunity. So that was the biggest draw.
Yeah. All right, I think we'll close here. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for being on stage.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you so much. Sorry? Yeah, yes. See you.
I really like the last part of your talk when you were saying that there was a lot of stuff you were doing and maybe didn't have a lot of use, but maybe it didn't matter. Mention that.
I think we get so scared about the was a real thing, but it's also nice to tackle
Your heart. Yeah, totally. But it was nice to hear both.
Also being a teaching assistant, of course, makes this possible that you have like a little salary
Sure.
in school and then to do your own
Security.
thing. It's always a pendulum.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.